What if I told you the real story of change isn't about a single life-altering moment, but a quiet, stubborn commitment you keep after the alarm clock goes off? What if the secret isn't talent or luck or timing, but the tiny decisions you repeat when your hands don't want to move? Your brain is loud with excuses, and your own future self is whispering, "Please, just one more day." Today I want to walk you through a simple, practical idea. Progress that compounds, one tiny habit at a time, and I want you to feel the truth in it, not just hear it, but feel it in your chest, in your breath, in that moment next you choose to begin again. I know that hook might feel almost too simple, it sounds almost too easy to be real. But stay with me. I've watched people transform not because they suddenly found a lightning bolt of motivation, but because they found a way to show up again and again. Even on the days when showing up feels like swimming through molasses. It's not glamorous at first. It's not dramatic. It's the steady drift of a ship patient enough to change course a degree at a time. Let me tell you a story about a person you might recognize in the mirror. Maya. Maya was a librarian by trade, a parent, a person with 100 daily responsibilities tugging at her sleeves. She had a dream she kept tucked away. The dream of running a half marathon, of feeling the wind move through her like a simple yes to life. But every time she tried to start, the first mile felt like climbing a mountain, and then the second mile felt like a second mountain, and the third mile felt like the map had lied to her about the route. One day she did something almost ridiculous in its simplicity. 2 minutes of movement, just 2 minutes. She paired it with a cue. After she unlocked her phone to text her friend, she would put on her sneakers and step outside for 2 minutes, no matter what. If it felt good, she kept going. If it didn't, she stopped and tried again tomorrow. 2 minutes doesn't seem like much, does it? That's the magic. 2 minutes a day wasn't glamorous, but the act created a tiny victory every day. And because she paired it with a cue she already had, unlocking her phone, the habit didn't require magical motivation. It required permission to start again. Day after day, Maya found that 2 minutes could become 10, could become 20, and eventually the miles added up not as a sprint, but as a patient, almost invisible accumulation. She didn't win the race the first week. She learned to live with the possibility that she could belong in the race at all. And when the calendar turned to fall and the town hosted its annual run, she crossed the finish line not as a miracle, but as a person who kept showing up. You might hear that and think, well, that's just one story. True, it's not a fable where the hero has perfect willpower all the time. It's a real human being choosing to begin where she stood and to trust the next step, even when the first one was uncertain. And that is the core of our conversation. You don't need a grand leap. You need a reliable, repeatable habit that's easy to start and hard to stop. Let me give you a second story, one that might hit closer to home if you've ever felt stuck in a cycle you can't explain away. This is about Sam, a software engineer who spent years chasing the idea of being productive without ever feeling productive. He tried to squeeze himself into a mold of long, intense work sessions, as if the size of the effort mattered more than the steadiness of the effort. He would wake up with time blocks and task lists, and by the end of the day, the lists looked the same or worse. Then, one evening, after another long day of feeling behind, Sam tried something almost anti-glamorous, a 2-minute syntax review. He didn't code, he just opened the file, glanced at a line of code, maybe fixed a tiny error, or explained to himself in plain language what a function did. 2 minutes, tied to the exact moment right after he finished his coffee and sat down at his desk. What happened next surprised him, because the 2 minutes were so small, he didn't resist starting. And when he started, his brain found reasons to stay. Curiosity about a bug, interest in a clever trick he'd forgotten, a sense of competence from fixing something. Those 2 minutes sometimes stretched to 4, 6, 8, and with that came a calmer evening routine, a tidy desk, a short note of what he learned, a plan for the next day. The habit wasn't about becoming a coding wizard overnight. It was about creating a soft landing for momentum, a habit that invited more of the good work without demanding a victory every night. If you're listening, you might be thinking, that's nice for them, but what about me? And that's fair. Let's talk about a practical blueprint you can apply this week. in a way that respects your life as it is today. First, choose one tiny habit. Not 10, one. Pick something that takes 2 minutes or less. It could be a stretch of a walk after dinner, a single-page read before bed, a 5-sentence journal entry about what went well today, or a single line of a new skill you're trying to learn. The key is to make it so small that the only reason you would skip it is if you're actually unconscious. If you're tired and burned out, you should be able to do it anyway, even in a low-energy state. Second, anchor it to an existing routine. Habits form best when they piggyback on something you already do every day. After you brush your teeth, after you finish coffee, after you walk in the door from work, anything that's a natural cue. The cue doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be reliable. Third, make it easy to do and easy to stop. Remove friction. If you want to write 2 sentences a day, keep a notebook by your bed, a pen in your pocket, or a digital note on your phone. If you want to stretch after waking, roll out of bed onto a yoga mat next to the bed. The simpler you make it to begin, the more likely you'll begin. Fourth, track it. There's truth in the tiny accountability of a streak. You don't need an app or a chart with colors, though those can help. A simple check mark on a calendar works. The point is to notice small, honest progress and to feel the satisfaction of a record growing. It's not about perfection. It's about honesty and momentum. Fifth, review and adjust weekly. You're not promising a lifelong, unbreakable contract with a single habit. You're running a tiny experiment with your life. If 2 minutes isn't working at certain times, adjust the habit to 1 minute or another cue. If your life changes, new job, new baby, different schedule, retune the habit to fit the new rhythm rather than abandoning it. Let me give you a more tangible example of how this can work in a different sphere: creativity and learning. Imagine you want to learn a musical instrument, but you've convinced yourself you're too busy, you're too old, you're too unmusical. Start with 1 minute of practice each day, the moment you sit down with your instrument. Don't aim to play a masterpiece. Aim to play 1 note clearly, then 2, then an easy scale. 1 minute today, maybe 2 minutes tomorrow. The principle is not genius. It's the habit of showing up before you're ready to feel ready. Over time, that 1 minute compounds into genuine skill, and something surprising happens. You begin to enjoy the process more than the result. Now, let's address what undermines people when they try to make a habit stick. The inner critic, the voice that says, "Today isn't the day," or "You're not good enough, so why bother?" This is where the emotional connection matters most. If you're listening to that voice, you're not alone. I've heard it from students, parents, nurses, factory workers, gamers, people who often feel that their dreams belong to someone else, not to them. The antidote isn't denial, it's compassion plus structure. Tell that voice, gently but firmly, "I hear you, we're doing this anyway." Then give yourself the smallest possible next step that proves you care more about your future self than your fear in this moment. Stories, they aren't just filler, they're maps for how humans actually work. I've watched a shy teacher named Elena begin to use her voice more in class through a micro habit. Every time she entered the room, she'd say 1 sentence aloud, just 1 sentence about the lesson she was about to teach. Not a full lecture, not a grand speech, a single intentional sentence. Today we will explore 2 ways to solve this problem. The effect wasn't dramatic at first, but over weeks, the students started to lean in, and Elena's own confidence grew. The habit didn't eliminate fear, it reframed fear as a signal to prepare, not to quit. Or consider the story of an entrepreneur, Raj, who failed 3 times, lost a chunk of savings, and almost closed his doors. He didn't pivot with a big plan. He started with a tiny customer outreach habit. 1 cold email a day to a potential partner. He kept it simple, kept it doable, and kept it honest. That 1 email led to a conversation, which led to a collaboration, which led to a product refinement, which led to a small but steady revenue stream. The moral isn't that you'll get rich from 1 email, but that you'll learn to fail forward with fewer teeth-gnashing moments of despair and more days of consistent, imperfect progress. I want you to feel the heartbeat of these stories so you can imagine your own version. Because the real magic isn't in the examples themselves, it's in the recipe they follow. A plan you can actually execute, with patience as your companion and resilience as your engine. Let me pause on the science for a moment and share a more human reflection. Change isn't a straight line. It looks more like a coastline. careful, messy, and full of inlets where you think you might have landed, only to discover a bend you didn't expect. You will have days where the 2-minute rule feels more like a 2-hour rule, and days where you're tempted to abandon the experiment altogether. That's not a failure. That's weather. The question is whether you'll wait for perfect skies or put on your raincoat and walk anyway. If you're still with me, here are 3 questions you can ask yourself tonight to prime your next steps. What one tiny habit would you start if you knew you could keep it for 30 days? What cue can you attach that will be reliable every day, even on your toughest days? What are you most curious about learning or improving? And can you carve 2 minutes a day to explore it? Answering these questions isn't a test. It's your own lab notebook for a life you want to live. You don't have to leap to love. You just have to decide to begin again, again, and again. As the narrative arc of your day winds down, I want to give you one more story. The kind that makes the room feel a little warmer, the air a little softer, the clock a little kinder. It's about a grandmother named Rosa who had always believed her best years were behind her. Rosa's habit was simple. Write a single sentence in a notebook each afternoon about something she learned that day, no matter how small. She wasn't writing a bestseller. She was writing a personal log of curiosity. After a year, Rosa wasn't a different person from the outside, but she had rebuilt a sense of agency. She realized that life has a long coastline, and you don't have to conquer it in a day. You have to walk it steadily, one line at a time. On her 80th birthday, her family found that notebook stacked with sentences. Tiny, honest, human. They read them aloud and realized that Rosa's life wasn't defined by a single achievement, but by a continuous practice of paying attention, of choosing to begin again in small, meaningful ways.
If you're listening to this, I want you to hear this last piece as clearly as I can share it. Your future self isn't somewhere far away. It's here, inside the choices you make today. The 2-minute walk you take tonight is not just about fitness. It's about telling your future self that you are worth the effort, that you deserve a life that doesn't wait for extraordinary moments to occur. The 2-minute page you read aloud to yourself or write in a journal isn't just about learning. It's about proving to your fear that you have a plan and you are willing to follow it, even when fear whispers to retreat. So, what will you do with this moment? Not tomorrow, not when the stars align, but right now. Choose your tiny habit, tie it to a routine, remove the friction, log your progress, review, adjust, repeat. Let this be your small river that carves a canyon over time. Let this be the quiet engine that powers your days, not the fireworks of instantaneous transformation. And if you stumble, as you surely will, I want you to remember Maya, to remember Sam, to remember Rosa. These people didn't become different overnight. They kept showing up, and that's what finally reshaped their world. Here's the invitation I'm extending to you. Commit to a 21-day micro-habit challenge. Pick one tiny habit, one simple cue, 1 minute or 2 of daily practice. Start tonight and keep a simple log of your daily attempt. At the end of 21 days, write down what surprised you most about yourself, and what you'll adjust for the next 21 days. If you're listening on a platform that lets you comment, drop a line with your chosen habit and your starting date. If you're watching alone, tell yourself in the mirror or in a voice memo, "Today I begin again." Then do it again tomorrow. If this message resonates with you and you want more practical, weekly guidance on turning small habits into lasting change, consider joining the community that's growing around this conversation. Subscribe for more videos like this. Share this with a friend who could use a small nudge. And in the comments, tell me the tiny habit you're starting this week. I'll be there, responding, cheering, sharing more stories, more science, and more steps you can take to move your life from intention into action. Remember, you don't need permission to begin again. You only need a single doable next step, a plan that fits your life, and the resolve to show up for the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. The future isn't some distant prize you chase by heroic leaps. It's something you build with the smallest, most faithful bricks you can lay today. Thank you for spending this time with me. I believe in your capacity to begin again, to learn, to grow, and to become a version of yourself you're proud of.
Take a breath. Pick your tiny habit. Tie it to today's routine. Make it easy to start and make it worth continuing. And I'll meet you here again with more stories, more ideas, and more steps to help you keep moving forward, one quiet, stubborn yes at a time.